A plate of lemon cupcakes lay in my bakery's showcase. As I positioned them in the Pearl District of Portland, Oregon, in the early air that brought the aroma of roasted coffee and new rain. On a typical Monday, the store was packed with customers, eager to get their morning pastries, and the jingle of the doors provided a constant beat. While I was putting a bow on a cupcake box for Mrs. Carter, a regular customer who usually ordered extra for her reading club, my phone rang on the counter. With the hope of receiving a prompt about Avery's school pickup, I sneaked a peek at the screen. Instead, the message was sent by my husband Ethan. My stay with you has come to an end. My partner Sam and I are moving to the City of Angels. Good luck, my darling. I've spent all of the money in our joint account. My spirits plummeted like a stone in a well, yet my smile never wavered, no matter how much rain was falling outside. I handed Mrs. Carter the package with complete confidence. I made a casual comment about how much fun it would be for you to attend your book club. Unaware of the catastrophic explosion that had just taken place in my life, she smiled. My husband's one text message ended our 14-year marriage, and all it took was a small squeeze around my eyes to make it official. Until Mrs. Carter left, leaving the door jingling shut behind her, I did not answer my phone again. As I read the message again, Ethan's words tasted harsh. We have made changes to our shared budget. I am getting ready to go to Hollywood down by Sadie. His 22-year-old sales associate, Sadie Harper, was the one who at last year's corporate picnic had laughed too hard at his jokes. I could almost feel the excitement on her face as I imagined her dancing with her newly won trophy. I surprised me by staying calm. I didn't hear a scream, so I reached into my desk drawer and took out a white envelope that I had created a few weeks before. I set it on the counter. I told my assistant Jenna, if Ethan drops by, give him this, in a voice as pleasant as if I were asking for more coffee. Jenna nodded, her brow slightly furrowed, but she didn't ask any questions. It was clear that I could manage marriage disintegration with grace, as she had seen me handle rush hour mayhem with ease. As I stepped into the back kitchen, the pleasant scent of yeast and sugar wafted over me. I retrieved a mug of coffee, heated it up, and poured myself a cup. Outside my Portland window, a soft gray curtain was drawing in the rain. Something I hadn't felt in months, a sense of relief came over me. After catching me unawares, Ethan assumed I would be a devastated mess, begging him to remain. Even though I had been getting ready for this moment and could see the storm brewing in the horizon, he was completely unaware. As I took a drink of my coffee and cracked a little hidden smile, the bitterness mirrored my mood. The contents of that packet went beyond mere paper. For months, I had been planning how to take advantage of Ethan's betrayal, and this was the first step in that plan. My name is Lillian Monroe, but my friends call me Lily. I just received the most cruel farewell I have ever encountered. The number 39 is my age. Ethan was probably thinking about how to bring me down while he celebrated his daring escape with Sadie, but I was 3 steps ahead of him. I have a knack for numbers and can spot instances of financial fraud and theft, because to my background as a part-time freelance accountant, it didn't help that Ethan had left behind indisputable clues. I have a knack for numbers and can spot instances of financial fraud and theft, because to my background as a part-time freelance accountant. In addition, Ethan had left a trail of signs that I couldn't ignore. He had a midlife crisis and went on networking retreats in Bend, while I took care of our family, and he pursued his doomed dreams of corner offices promotions and 3 failed sales campaigns. We were able to get back on our feet financially with my assistance when our credit score plummeted a year later due to his extravagant spending on a sports vehicle. As Ethan rebranded himself in thin jeans and a graphic top, I remained up late taking care of Avery's school payments and inspecting small companies, a rebranding that came and went as fast as a summer in Portland in the blink of an eye. Whether it's becoming Sweet Bloom into a chain or becoming an accounting business that focuses on female entrepreneurs has always been a secret goal of mine. I would go to sleep in the bakery every morning until Avery was settled in school, lulled by the gentle gray skyline of Portland, framed by the Portland cityscape outside the window. After Ethan's advancement, but promotions eluded Ethan like the sun in January. Issues with our joint money were brought to my attention for the first time 5 months ago. Small fees, nothing out of the usual, yet they failed to accumulate. Return airfare to Los Angeles for $500. Get a weekend getaway to the Ace Hotel for $1,800. I spent $200 in a jewelry store for an unknown necklace. At first, I thought it was a glitch, a technical issue with the bank. But I'm not the kind of gal who puts her faith in hard numbers. Having spent years fixing balance sheet errors, I was not going to ignore this. I dug further more discreetly and systematically, like an auditor who was scrutinizing a client's finances. I entered our account information in the middle of the night, as the rain outside persisted in its constant patter in a bakery kitchen that was otherwise silent but for the hum of the refrigerator. In order to locate the expenditures and compare them to our credit card statements, I kept my fingers glued to the laptop keyboard. What I found was a treachery as cold as the winter Willamette River. A secret account has been Ethan's go-to for almost a year of funding. Sadie had been his date to rooftop dinners in the Pearl District. He had bought her the jewelry, and he had even paid a non-refundable $40,000 deposit on an LA property. The significance of watching our spending on Avery's future was something she repeatedly emphasized throughout this period. We are unable to purchase that new oven for the bakery at this time, Lily, he had said last month, his voice strained as we sat at our Laurelhurst kitchen table. I agreed, putting my faith in him, while he sent money to his mistress via wire transfer. Finding the receipt was my next step. An elegant restaurant receipt for 2 persons from downtown Portland, dated the same night that Ethan said he had been working late, slipped out of his jacket pocket one night as I was putting it away. His story and the arithmetic both failed to make sense. That next night, I went to a separate bank and moved my funds from Sweet Bloom's earnings into a new account I had just created. We merged our accounts after a week, and I grinned and agreed with Ethan that it would streamline things. I also transferred most of our money to my new account. He was able to avoid appearing suspicious since the joint account he had recently drained held around 2 months' worth of regular deposits. Everything else was safe, as were the detailed records of every questionable deal he had made in the past 12 months. I had printed off every document that proved his dishonesty and put them in a binder. Our business picnic was where I first met Sadie last year. She was a bubbly 22-year-old whose infectious laughter irritated me. Touching his arm and giggling at his terrible dad jokes with her sparkling fresh eyes, she had been all over Ethan. I pretended not to notice the knot that had developed in my stomach as I observed her. It had also escaped Ethan's notice. As he popped a strawberry into his mouth, he made the comment, "She's just friendly Lily," while peering through his new aviators in the sunshine. Friendly? Oh, I perceive. At that time, everything ought to have been crystal clear to me, but I still wouldn't accept it. That is, until irrefutable evidence existed. His recent security concerns didn't stop me from finding further proof. In a text message from Sadie, when he left his phone on the counter one night with the passcode still intact. My heart is racing with anticipation for our time in Los Angeles, my darling. My chest constricted as a chilling burden settled into my bones. We're at last at liberty. With a steady hand and a racing heart, I scrolled through their messages. Future preparations for their united life. He assured Avery that he would handle things once summer camp was over. His timing in breaking the news of our breakup was impeccable. He knew I would be preoccupied with the bakery and unable to respond in time. She'll be too exhausted to engage in combat, he had penned. Just right, Sadie said. In Los Angeles, we will be enjoying cocktails. As I stood there, my world seemed to have tipped over, listening to the rain tap against the kitchen window and inhaling the aroma of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven. It was all a facade, those 14 years of late-night baking sessions, rooting for Avery at soccer games and supporting Ethan through his setbacks. No, I remained unbroken. After taking screenshots and sending them to myself via email, I returned his phone to its original state after locking it. A short while later, Ethan whimpered his way downstairs, completely bewildered. "It smells amazing in here," he remarked, plucking up a glass of water. I put on an act of friendliness. No problem. Ethan was completely unaware and never understood that I am a master at keeping track of money and personal records. I meticulously recorded every lie, late-night client meeting, and transaction. I hired Tara, a private investigator who specialized in domestic cases. We met at a cafe near the bakery, and she handed me a thick file that resembled a recipe book. It contained photos of Ethan and Sadie holding hands in Venice Beach, taken at a hotel in Los Angeles. There were receipts from a boutique inn in San Francisco where they stayed for the weekend. Additionally, a Los Angeles apartment lease document signed by both parties was also included. Tara's voice was gentle and her eyes were kind. "I apologize, Mrs. Monroe." Recognizing that it wouldn't be a picnic, I nodded and carefully placed the file in my bag. Murmured a thank you. I certainly wasn't about to collapse. In the course of my labor, I built a fortress. Thinking back on our prenuptial agreement made me remember the anxious young salesman Ethan from before we were married, who was worried about losing half of his future earnings if our marriage didn't work. 14 years have passed since then. I had no reservations about signing it because of his unwavering love and belief in us. He would meet his demise with that paper. Hidden in the fine print was a stipulation concerning infidelity that should one of us cheat would result in serious financial repercussions. While I read it late at night, the bakery was deserted and the rain was a steady hum outside. Ethan was sound asleep upstairs, unaware of the reckoning I was planned. It was impossible to understand the clause. My attorney, Henry Caldwell, and I met the next morning in his office in downtown Portland, where we could see the Willamette River reflected in the glass. Henry smiled and said, "It's solid," while sipping his coffee. "Good," I declared, as I nodded and stirred my coffee, experiencing a wave of serene resolve. "With the evidence, you've got those transactions, the messages, the photos. He'll lose the house, the joint assets, everything. Shall we proceed?" Ethan planned his daring escape in the months that followed, while I labored clandestinely to get ready. I made notes on everything from transfers to messages to flat-out falsehoods. I booked my appointment with Henry to file the divorce papers with exact timing. Based on my intuition, Ethan would wait till the school year is over before telling Avery anything, all in an attempt to save her upsetting, or so he would tell himself. He had no clue because I had already submitted the papers that morning before he texted me at the bakery. He couldn't access them just now, but they were safely stashed away in the court records, ready to strike at the right time. In every situation, I managed to stay one step ahead. I had been preparing for this betrayal for a lot longer than Ethan had anticipated, but he thought his message had caught me off guard. I took a drive over to our Laurelhurst home today. I remember buying it with you guys when we were a team or so, I had imagined. Ethan had previously assured Sadie that he would give her the house as seen in those hidden phone messages. As I pulled into the driveway, a gentle rain shower and the familiar scent of wet grass and cedar met me. Inside, everything seemed the same. After Avery's first birthday celebration, when her juice had gotten everywhere, we refinished the hardwood flooring, the gallery wall that displays her life's accomplishments, her first finger painting, her kindergarten graduation, and the soccer trophy she won the year before, where Ethan and I would spend hours at the kitchen island, laughing and daydreaming about her future as we baked cookies together. Now, though, everything was different. The house's old personality was falling away, and I could feel its emptiness. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom to the sound of their usual, barely audible creak. I felt the aprons I had worn as the ever-supportive wife to countless baking functions as I rummaged through the wardrobe. Behind them in the corner were his baggage, packed. Will be departing tomorrow right after his big announcement. As I stared at them, my jaw dropped wide in a sour chuckle. The way he would painstakingly roll his clothes and tuck his shoes into bags when packing had long fascinated him. However, he failed to prioritize what was truly important. Seeing no one, Nora, Ethan's sister, and someone I'd always thought of as more of a friend than her brother was, among the folks whose texts were ringing in my pocket from the bakery. I responded to the message from Avery's school by retrieving it, my pulse racing. Though my chest hurt, I confirmed the parent-teacher meeting the next day with unwavering precision. So as not to disrupt Avery's school year, I had kept her in the dark for months. Even though Ethan tried to help Sadie out financially, she was already working very hard between her academic tutoring and soccer practice. I was worried Avery would be upset that I didn't tell her, but I trusted that she would understand eventually. She has the magnetic personality of her dad and the analytical mind and meticulous attention to detail of me. The betrayal by Ethan prevented the light from being turned on. I haven't made up my mind yet. Perched on the edge of our bed, I sensed the soft caress of the quilt my mom had sewn for our wedding day. A blueprint of a life I thought I understood embroidered into its fabric. Reliving our first few dates brought back fond memories of Ethan surprising me with coffee trips to Stumptown and going hiking in Forest Park, where we would giggle as we made our way down the muddy slopes. We had been through a tremendous deal. 3 unsuccessful sales efforts drained our funds. Ethan would sing Avery lullabies in a soft voice whenever she woke up in agony from her ears during her challenging toddler years. Before Avery was born, we had been there for each other when we went through a painful miscarriage. How did he transform? Had I maybe been preoccupied with my baking to see that he had always been so egotistical and deceitful? My shaking of the head seemed to erase the memories. At the moment, they didn't matter. Nothing mattered more than the plan I had implemented. Leaving a slip of paper in the bakery's envelope wasn't all I had done. Something to guide you out of the storm, a flame, a spark. As if bracing myself for the impending showdown, I stood up, fixed my apron, and headed downstairs. As if bracing myself for the impending showdown, I stood up, fixed my apron, and headed downstairs. The automobile belonging to Ethan screeched into our Laurelhurst driveway, its tires spinning on the rain-slicked tarmac, 4 hours after I was ready to shut Sweet Bloom for the day. As soon as the front door swung wide, a gust of wet, cedar-scented Portland air surged in. "Excuse me, Lily-chan." His yelling, which was a mix of wrath and terror, echoed through the home. I was in the kitchen making cookies for Avery to eat after school while Ethan's financial transactions were blazing on my laptop screen. "Dude, where are you?" he barged in as I gently snapped the white envelope I'd left at the bakery, closed, his face red with anger. "What does this even signify?" He slammed the papers onto the counter, his voice quivering with anger, asked him, "It is my understanding that you proceeded with the divorce filing on the last day of Avery's school." As I looked up into his eyes, my voice stayed calm. I said something like, "I thought it paired nicely with your plans," as if relating a recipe. A need for a new beginning burned within you. I am just involved in assisting you in reaching that point. There was zero rationale behind it. I quickly put a stop to his growing cries of frustration. I thought the whole thing was well within the law. I also think you made the right choice in choosing Sadie. Ethan, everyone must choose a choice. The enchantment was shattered by the shrill ring of his pocket phone. As soon as he glanced at it briefly, before disregarding it, I knew it was him. Sadie was probably confused that he wasn't at the airport as they were supposed to take a trip to Los Angeles. He tried a different approach, seeming almost arrogant and condescending. "That prenup, it's ancient history," he added, crossing his arms to show his confidence. I couldn't help but grin slightly, the kind that made him shudder, and I said, "No lawyer will defend it after all this time." "Indeed, it is still valid. Section 14 states that the infidelity clause is in effect throughout the marriage. Your lawyer should have informed you of this. You didn't hire one, though." "Oh, I see." His formerly arrogant face turned red with fear as he realized he would be disinherited from the house joint assets and my bakery as a result of the prenup he had imposed for his own protection. His spectacular exit from the bakery was the most costly mistake he had ever made. His voice cracked as he sank into a chair, his hands trembling. I spoke dispassionately. "We built this life together." I tilted my head to observe him more closely. "Moreover, you chose to destroy it." His phone beeped again, this time with more persistence, but still not in the way he had expected. His shoulders slumped even more as he scowled at it. "What gives?" I asked with a hint of humor in my voice. "Sadie is already at the airport," he mumbled almost to himself. The words, "Our flight, it's been canceled." A grin crept across my face as I knew all along. Was that airfare booked using our shared credit card, this motel in California? Made the reservation with the same card. He gave me the silent signal, but he was still bewildered and hadn't seen the trap I'd laid. When I suggested that you get in touch with your credit card company, my tone was casually dishonest. I reported such allegations of fraud. Their holding will be discontinued. As a wave of astonishment and dread swept over him, his pupils enlarged, and I also disabled your authorization. Say my name. His speech was labored and trembling. "You have until tomorrow evening to get your things out," I replied firmly as I rose up and collected my suitcase and a tiny overnight case that Avery and I had packed. "Then we'll change the locks." Ethan, who was embarrassed, begged me as I walked to the door. Is there any update on Avery? I wonder how this is affecting her. Would you think about it? With my hand on the doorknob and my temper flaring, I lost all composure. No way, Ethan. Our daughter isn't an acceptable justification. Even though it was raining, I braved the elements and went to visit Nora at her home near Portland State University, where she worked as a freelance graphic designer. While you and Sadie were making plans for your Hollywood life, she wasn't even on your radar. As the rain pelted down, the city lights shimmered, and the barely visible, distant shape of Mount Hood could be made out. Nora swung her arms about me like a shelter from the storm as soon as I arrived at the door. I just got off the phone with Avery's teacher. She continued, her voice burdened with concern, drawing me within as she spoke. In spite of my paralysis from heart palpitations, Nora squeezed my arm and informed me that Ethan had attempted to abduct her earlier, claiming he was going to drive her to Los Angeles. You can be calm. I cautioned the school not to let her go. Until you arrive, she'll be okay with her teacher. I said, my shoulders releasing a little tension. Along with my response, thank you, I followed her into the living room. There was a pot of tea on the coffee table, 2 cups ready, and you could see the steam rising from the bottom of the pot. I am absolutely shocked that Ethan pulled that stunt. Nora screamed, her dark eyes reflecting her anger as she poured the tea. When Avery's last day of school there was a class celebration. He must be absolutely bonkers. The chamomile tea was a nice warm-up on this cool evening. My jaw clenched and my mouth narrowed as Nora spoke the words, a public exit, so I would be too shocked to resist. I continued by explaining that the purpose of the cup was to catch me off guard. My brother has always loved playing that part. As the rain outside frosted the windows, we reclined on her comfy couch, surrounded by her art posters and sketch pads. I never imagined something like this happening. Nora has always been a fearless individualist and an unfettered artist. For a long time, I admired her ability to live her life to the fullest without settling for anything less than her very best. Her curiosity burst through the awkward stillness as she said, why was he so agitated about that envelope? Once again, I sipped my tea while staring into her eyes. I had to explain why the couple was divorcing, the proof of his financial misconduct. Along with her wide eyes, Nora let out a piercing chuckle at the thought of the prenup that would leave him with nothing. The prenup, then, I can remember his obsession with it well even now. He was really afraid that his father would take away the sales bonus he had recently received. The irony is almost too good to be true. My phone rang, shattering the stillness. A call came from my lawyer, Henry Caldwell. I took a long breath before answering. Using a level head and addressing her as Lily, he spoke. I am in possession of fresh details that I must provide. The urgent petition has been green-lit. The joint finances will be kept frozen while the divorce is being conducted. With a sensation of tranquil victory sweeping over me, I uttered a soft, "Thank you, Henry." Ethan's financial resources are now severely constrained, leaving him with just enough to cover essentials, much alone, save for the dream condo he had set his sights on in Los Angeles. Is he still in the queue for service? I smirked, feeling the calming influence of the tea enveloping me, and uttered, "Good." Henry's voice had a hint of amusement to it, but we managed to track him down to the airport. His Los Angeles hotel reservation apparently fell through, leaving him and Sadie stranded. "Let him stew for a bit," I said before hanging up and looking over at Nora, who raised an eyebrow. "Is there an issue at the airport?" she said, her lips slightly apart. How naive of him to undervalue a baker with an aptitude for numbers. I agreed, my laughter seeping out of my mouth. I nodded and laughed uncontrollably. He's about to discover the consequences of underestimating a baker who is good with numbers. I glanced over at Nora, who mirrored my smile. But the mirth quickly faded as I thought about Avery, who was unaware of the chaos her father had caused while she was at school. I have to go get Avery, I whispered, setting down my mug, while still feeling the warmth of the tea on my palms. Nora whispered, she deserves to hear the truth from me. Ain't you? She gently squeezed my arm and said, Lily, I have faith in you. On my way to drop Avery off at school, I smiled and thanked her for her support as I battled the wet streets of Portland. On my way to the city, I noticed a verdant and grayscale kaleidoscope. On a gloomy Thursday morning, the preliminary hearing took place at the Multnomah County courtroom. Among the scent of coffee wafting from a nearby cart and the heavy weight of wet concrete. While I brought Henry, my attorney Ethan hired a last-minute lawyer from a practice that focuses on small business issues instead than family law. His crumbling plan has made yet another error. The judge, a lady with keen eyes and an attitude of no nonsense, examined the prenuptial agreement as she lightly tapped the surface. This document seems to be in order, she said with a strong and decisive tone. Speaking on behalf of Ethan, a young nervous guy in a faded suit cleared his throat. Do you disagree with its veracity? He said. As she adjusted her spectacles, the judge read aloud, We feel the agreement is no longer relevant because of how much time has gone by. As mentioned in Section 19, the term is for the entirety of the marriage and any related judicial processes. Ethan crouched down and whispered something important to his lawyer, who was visibly becoming increasingly nervous, his tie slightly off-kilter. She glanced up as she studied the documents, her gaze growing increasingly fierce. Additionally, the judge added, the evidence of systematic fund transfers violates the financial transparency requirements in Section 25. I am maintaining the order to freeze joint accounts due to the lack of full financial transparency. Mr. Monroe will continue to have access to his personal account. Mrs. Monroe will retain possession of the marital residence throughout the duration of the proceedings as stated in the prenuptial agreement's infidelity provision. Ethan's face became a deep shade of crimson, and he gripped the table tightly with his fists. His barely audible mutterings of, "This is absurd," could be discerned from across the courtroom. The judge shot him a harsh glance and spoke with an icy tone. "Excuse me, Monroe, I urge you to carefully review the deal you just signed. The court will reconvene for the whole hearing 30 days after discovery is concluded." With brisk feet and a low, frantic voice, Ethan sprinted up to me in the corridor as we departed from the courthouse. "Excuse me, Lily, this requires an adult-level discussion." After 14 years of marriage, I paused and turned to face him, maintaining a composed yet determined expression. It had great significance until you decided it didn't. I then abandoned him to face the Portland fog alone in the courthouse corridor, burdened by the decisions he had made. Our social circle was swept up in the whispers and assumptions. On a daily basis, friends would contact them, some to provide words of support and others to inquire about their upcoming yoga class. I spoke in a measured, concise manner and kept my voice down. My relationship with Ethan is ending. While this was going on, Ethan's carefully constructed persona, that of a dedicated father and successful salesman, fell apart like a crumbling cookie. Because of the budget cut, he was unable to fulfill his commitments to Sadie. This Ellie, a condo deal fell through and the deposit was lost. The dealership called to confirm the cancellation of the lease on the new SUV he had leased. 2 weeks subsequent to the hearing, Nora contacted me via phone, relaying the most recent developments with an air of amusement in her voice. Oh my goodness! I placed my rolling pin on the counter of the bakery, a slight smile playing on my lips as Sadie stepped out. Have you already? The speed was mind-blowing, even though I wasn't surprised. It seems like she learned about Ethan's company about to lay off workers. Nora joked, her voice shaking with amusement. The huge savings he boasted about are no more. She told her friend Grace that she wouldn't date a guy who didn't have a place to live. The sound became freeing, and I couldn't help but chuckle. I said under my breath, he was always good at spinning tales. I stood up as Ethan faltered. Ethan had no idea that my private account served as a safety net, allowing me to live the life he hadn't expected. I leased a small office in the Northwest District that overlooked the Willamette River and the Fremont Bridge. The room had exposed brick walls. Monroe Accounting Solutions is a consulting service that specializes on helping women-led enterprises with financial transparency and success. I was its founder. I was fortunate to collaborate with 3 women who were launching their own businesses: a floral designer, a yoga studio owner, and their experiences were very similar to mine, in equal measure uplifting and terrible. My door was flooded with clients as a result of the rapid spread of word-of-mouth promotion. In the same methodical way that I had exposed Ethan's dishonesty, I helped women with their financial concerns at times of change, such as when they started new enterprises, went through divorces, or started over. I found purpose in working since every task I completed helped me heal and served as a continual reminder that I was building something meaningful from the ashes of my past. When I established my second Sweet Bloom near Powell's Books, the scent of baking pastries drew in customers from all over. Avery, who had shown remarkable poise and resilience in the face of our divorce news, helped me string fairy lights while we decorated the new store, and her laughter echoed throughout the space. While I was driving home from the bakery one evening, she told me, "I'm so proud of you, Mom." Sunset over the Portland skyline brought a grin to my face as I heard, "You're making a difference, and that means a lot to us." Stone 2010. I simply wanted to express my gratitude for someone helping me out before. Assisting women in overcoming adversity. When my expertise was acknowledged for purposes other than baking, it was like unearthing a secret formula, one that was all mine. The most recent divorce hearing took place on a brisk fall day, which happened to be both the anniversary of our split and the date of our first meeting, a day that brought back happy memories of coffee dates and walks through Forest Park. Nearly 15 years ago, this narrative began. Now it had reached its last chapter. With a worn suit and weary eyes, Ethan arrived to the courts in an unkempt condition. I learned that his position had been abolished due to business cutbacks after the uproar surrounding his romance with Sadie. By this time, Sadie had already relocated to Seattle, where she resided with a new younger partner, and shared photos of their social media adventures, including coffee runs and indie concerts. Many of our common acquaintances stopped asking Ethan to get-togethers and gaming evenings once the news spread. The quick and conclusive verdict upheld the prenup in its entirety. Ethan ran away to a less attractive section of Portland, where he could only afford a small apartment with all of his personal belongings, his still-debt automobile, and the pathetic amount in his personal account. In case of infidelity our Laurelhurst house, my retirement money, and 70% of our joint assets might be kept according to the prenuptial agreement. Justice was as comforting and certain as a freshly baked loaf of bread. In the end, the paper that Ethan had insisted on for self-defense proved to be his undoing. With a quiet voice, Ethan approached me warily one last time as we departed from the courthouse. While staring into my eyes, he said, "I made a terrible mistake." The long-lost love and forgiveness that previously existed between us seemed to flood back. I used a kind but forceful tone of voice to suddenly finish his statement, just as the sound of a door softly shutting interrupted him. "Oh no, that door is baked shut," he said under his breath. His shoulders slumped, and a slight expression of surrender playing on his face as he nodded. Regarding his understanding, he said nothing. As a change, I truly believed he was the one who did it. "My deepest, most heartfelt wishes are with you, Lily. Dad told me you deserve it." It was one of the few truthful things Dad had spoken to me in years. Among the rubble of our history, I turned and marched away, giving a modest nod as I went, my footsteps reverberating on the courtroom stairs. After 6 months of saving women in Portland and Beyond Monroe accounting solutions finally took off. In the Northwest District, I had moved to a roomier office with skylights and a balcony, where I could sip my coffee in the mornings while watching the streetcars go by. 2 of my associates, both women who were devoted to uplifting others, helped me build a community. From businesswomen starting over after a betrayal to moms raising children alone, every one of my clients was an inspiration in resilience and fortitude. The flagship store, one of 3 Sweet Bloom locations, quickly became a favorite among both residents and visitors. Avery would still stop by, often despite her busy schedule with school and sports. The new lavender scones were so popular that she frequently brought her friends to try them. "You realize what's amusing?" As we sat in the bakery one afternoon, the rain outside was a gentle mist, she pointed out. I nodded, drinking my latte as the metropolis changed into a palette of greens and grays. Dad was hoping to win, but he ended up moving in with Grandma instead. Response: people fail to recognize the ways in which they contribute to their own demise, I said in a soft, reflective voice. From the ashes of betrayal, the woman who had claimed to be Ethan's wife and Avery's mother had fashioned a new identity. Baking expert, keeping track of money, firm believer. I found more than just proof of Ethan's betrayal in the receipt I found in his pocket. It changed the course of my story irrevocably by sparking a passion that took me to places I had never been before. Hidden beneath it were justice and regeneration. I had reclaimed something far more delicious, my future certain. Just me. As I stood in the bakery, the rain of Portland swept away my worries, and the sight of the city outside the window promised brighter times ahead. As I stood in the bakery, the rain of Portland swept away my worries, and the sight of the city outside the window promised brighter times ahead. The next year, all 3 Sweet Bloom stores were at capacity, but this time the customers weren't interested in pastries. They were eager to hear the inspiring tale of a lady who had overcome treachery and victory. An urban legend had been born, Sweet Bloom. Monroe Accounting Solutions became an essential tool for women company owners in the Pacific Northwest, and every client was a testament to the power of perseverance in the face of hardship. With dreams of a carefree life in Hollywood, Ethan had gone back to his parents' house, glitter fading into the monotony of an office job at a car dealership. After Sadie vanished, her Instagram page began to showcase a series of sunset photographs shot by her new companion, a barista with a poetic bent. For me, the discovery of my identity was more pleasurable than retribution. The receipt I found in Ethan's pocket, the one that had unlocked my whole world, was more than just paper. Before it, I had never ventured to bake a life yet. It was the turning point that changed my tale. Embrace hardship and turn it into an advantage instead than trying to avoid it when things become rough. For anyone listening, here's the lesson: trust your instincts, protect what's yours, and never underestimate the power of a good plan. Life might throw you a bitter ingredient, but with a little grit, you can turn it into something delicious. If you liked this story, drop a 1 in the comments below. If it didn't quite hit the mark, let me know with a 0. I'd love to make the next one even better. Or leave your own thoughts. I'm all ears. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It'll give me the push to keep baking up stories just for you.